Hi everyone, welcome to Infinite Audit Talk 11th edition. In audit, the preparation of an audit report is part of a series of important stages as an added value for the company. This stage is determinant so that all processes that we are carried out previously, include planning and implementation, were not in vain and succeed in having a major impact. At the final stage of the audit, one of the major challenges is to present a report on the result that can be understood by all parties. The target audience is very broad, ranging from the ranks of the maybe commissioner, directors, managers, staff to the regulators. Of course, they have different backgrounds and interests of understanding things. And in Infinite Audit Talk 11th edition, we will discuss auditing challenge in writing a good audit result. So let's start it. On opening questions, I would like to ask by Im, what are basically important things mentioned on the standard which not all are familiar about?
Okay, thank you, Bunga. Hello. Hello, Infinite friends. We are back with English edition of Infinite Audit Talk. And actually, we are always happy to do this in English since, while it's challenging as English isn't our first language, but it is mainly an opportunity for us to improve our speaking ability in English. So, pardon us for any grammatical mistake. I hope that what we say is still understandable. And as a disclaimer, as usual, we didn't specifically prepare our talk, so everything is just so casual. Okay, regarding Bunga's questions. So what's the important things mentioned on standard, which not all people are familiar about? Okay, so everything mentioned in standard, usually if you learn about standard, then you know about them. But I think not many are familiar about these things that I will mention. The first is about error. If a report or any kind of final communication contains a significant error or omissions, so this is basically mentioned in IPPF that the chief audit executive must communicate corrected information to all parties who received the original communication. So, for example, if Bunga received the audit report, but then the audit report is corrected, then Bunga should get the corrected version too. And then I think this is because everyone should have the same information regarding the audit result after the correction. And then the second one is about retention. Yeah, so the chief audit executive must also develop the retention requirement, I think, for engagement records that must be consistent with the organization guidelines or regulatory. For example, if in a country we have to retain the report for 5 years, then we have to keep it for 5 years at least. And then the next is about, let me think. Okay, in audit report, we can use, this is a term conducted in conformance with the international standard for the professional practice of internal auditing only if supported by the result of the quality assurance and improvement program. Yeah, QAIP. Yeah, so we cannot say that our report or our audit is conducted in conformance with the standard if the quality assurance and improvement program doesn't support it, doesn't support the what we say the claim. Okay, and then when we are not conform with the standard, we have to disclose the information which standard we are not conform with, and then the reason why we don't conform with it, and also the impact of the non-conformance. And then also I think that our audit report must be sufficiently disseminated to all the parties that need to be informed. And this is, I think, the last from me. I don't know whether it is explicitly mentioned in standard, but timeliness is such an important thing because now decision making should happen timely as soon as possible when the time is right. So I think we have to make, or we have to write, or we have to communicate our report in a timely manner. I think this is also so important that not many people are familiar about. Okay, then now it's my turn to ask you a question, Bunga. So we know that as an auditor, we have to write a lot of audit report. But based on your experience, Bunga, how is the standard structure of the audit report?
Basically, if we're talking about the standardized, structure, it's very, very based on the organization culture and maybe, standard. But generally, I can describe two kind of parts of the standardized audit reports. The first part is the conclusion of the audit result. In this section, the findings which are disclosed are only the material findings that are necessary. The focus is receive the attention or grab the, energy and attention of the top management, while the findings are not material enough, so we have to minimize to disclose here. And the second part is the description of the audit result. I will break this second part into two kind of chapters. Maybe the first one is with the introductions, and it consists of basically information about the audit, the objective, scope, methodology of the audit, and of course the understanding of the audit internal control systems. That's like one of the most key points here. And the second chapters are about the audit finding itself. In this section, the findings of the audit are described in full, which contain of the condition, the criteria that we use, or maybe like the cause of the occurrence of the condition that are different from the criteria as a result of the condition that differ from the criteria. Written response from the audit to the officer responsible to carrying out the follow-up, auditor's response of the audit response, if any, and of course the auditor recommendation as well as the follow-up that has been done. Yes, that's maybe like two big parts of the standardized of the audit findings. Thank you, Mbak. Getting more practical, but what basically are the audit report problems that happen often?
Wow, that's such an interesting question. Okay, so I think, of course, there are a lot of problems surrounding the audit reporting process. You agree with that, right? But I think I can say that three problems that happen often. The first one is about collecting or gathering the audit evidence that are sufficient, competent, and also complete. Well, of course, to write an audit report, we need to be supported by those evidence. Collecting them are not easy at all for auditors. So I think this is the first challenge, and also the first problem that I want to mention. And then the second one is about timeliness. As I mentioned before, that timeliness is such an important thing because now decision-making process should happen timely as soon as possible when the timing is right. So I think it's important, but in many cases, writing an audit report itself is challenging. So to make it timely, it's also a big challenge for auditor, especially if we couldn't easily agree with the auditee about the content.
Right.
a long discussion is needed, whether in audit team and between the audit team with the auditee. So while fulfilling the quality standard is also a challenging thing, discussion with the auditee is also another challenge. So I think make the audit report timely is become more challenging. And then this is the last one from me. I think coming out with the right tone is also a problem. How to make our audit report not offensive, but still we
Yeah,
can achieve our value adding objective with the
right.
biggest value. I think it's a combination that is not easy to be achieved by auditors. So I think yeah.
Agree.
Mm.
Yeah, how to make everything, like seamless and smooth as well.
Mhm. Okay, so that's what I have in mind. And now my questions to you is about so in our audit report we write about audit findings and audit issues, right?
Right.
But sometimes we like to confuse what is the difference between audit finding and
Yes.
audit issue. So what's the difference in your mind, Bunga?
Oh, well, this is basically a challenging questions. But as long as I know the difference between the audit findings and also audit issue are, like a fundamental understanding for us as an auditor. Practically, audit activities sometimes still present a confusion of understanding between audit findings and the audit issues. This can, then become a problem in audit report because the lack of understanding regarding the detail of the process. Well, basically, audit findings is an auditing in which the factual data comes from a direct observation when conducting the examination. And the data on the audit findings are usually in the form of symptoms that are clearly visible and the result of the weaknesses of the internal control processes. Example, like, the implementation of the audit finding include the change in a product price, maybe like without approval, or maybe the rate of, as a public sector, of course, we set a lot of rate or maybe the assumptions of the some economics key numbers, and yeah, something like that. In the essence, audit findings is in cases that occur specifically in detail of the field of the audit. Meanwhile, the audit issues is the main problem that occurs in the findings in audit finding, the findings in audit findings. The results of the audit issue are obtained from the conclusions of the audit findings, which, then becomes the consumption material for the top management or maybe the audit committee. Like, for example, the implementation of the audit issues, including, lack of supervision of the services, or there no updates on the standard operating procedure or SOP related to the business changes, or maybe, for example, like during the COVID-19 pandemic, there are a lot of, kind of standards that we have to adjust, right? So this is maybe part of the area of the audit issues that maybe we can improve as an auditor. Yes, the essence is the audit issues lies in auditing in general from the result of specific audit findings. So that's two kind of key differences between the two, audit issues and also findings. Yeah, thank you, Mbak. And I would like to ask you something about the dissemination process. Regarding the audit report, could you tell me about the dissemination process, Mbak?
Okay. Thank you for the questions. So I think first of all we have to mention about that the chief audit executive, CAE, is responsible for communicating final results, whether in verbal version and written version, aka report, to all appropriate parties following the engagement. So after the engagement, we have to like having that final communication with the appropriate parties, and then chief audit executive also determines the parties that receive the report based on the organizational communication protocols and also audit charter, I guess. Some will receive executive summaries, while others will receive full report. So it's based on their needs. I mean, for example, the board, will only need the executive summary, for example, and for our auditee, they need the full reports. So they can like knowing the reasoning why they have to do this and that, and what the action plan that they have to do after the engagement. I mean, and then I think it's also important to maintain a complete list of the recipient of reports, because in case there is a correction made to the report after the dissemination, then we can like disseminate the reports to them, so everyone will receive the updated version of the report. And then the last one, I think it's also important to consider consulting with the legal counsel when we want to like disseminate our report to external party. We have to like determine whether that external party is appropriate to receive our report. So it's better if we consult with the legal counsel in case there is something related to regulation that allow us or disallow us to give the report to them or the external parties. Okay, so I will ask you a question about writing an audit report. So in writing an audit report, how important it is to test the identification of root causes and aligning the results of the identification to the conceptual framework of internal control by, for example, the Committee of Sponsoring Organization of the Tradeway Commission or COSO. Okay, please.
Thank you, Mbak. Another challenging questions. Basically, if we're talking about the root cause, we are talking about to ensure the correctness, and the identified root cause require testing to ensure the correctness. Of course, auditors may perform tests in the following way. I mean, like maybe review the company policies and maybe applicable procedure, confirm to the top management or process owner on the problem that we found, and also review the risk map, provide an assessment of the failure of control functions, and to strengthen the test, auditor can align the identification result with the conceptual framework of internal control by, as you mentioned, the Committee of Sponsoring Organization of the Tradeway Commission, or we called as a COSO. I do believe there are a couple of components of internal control used by COSO. The first one is called by control environment, or a set of the standard processes and structure that provide the basis for implementing internal control within the organization. And then the second one is the risk assessment, which is involves an iterative and dynamic process to analyze risk related to the achievement or objective. And then control activities, which include action in accordance with policies and procedure to ensure the implementation of management directive in the context of minimizing the risk of achieving goals. And maybe last but not least is related to the monitoring activities, which include continuous evaluation, separate evaluation, or combination of both of them to ensure that each components of internal control is available and functioning as expected by the top management, or maybe by the organization as a general. And I do believe also that information and communication is very, very important too, since every organization needs the implementation of the internal control functions in supporting the achievement of goals. Furthermore, if the identification results are not included in the translation according to the COSO components, it can be concluded that the results are maybe, not that correct, or maybe not that, we can really sure of. So that's about like trying to collaborating, or maybe like channeling between the root cause analysis and also the frameworks of the COSO. Thank you, Mbak. So, Mbak, what do you think about the effective audit reports?
Wow, such an interesting questions. Okay, thank you, Bunga, for the question. So I think communicating engagement results, audit engagement results, effectively provides the management the opportunity to take corrective action in a timely manner. And of course, we can say that communicating the report, especially in an effective manner, is essential for auditors. To make an effective audit report, here are what I have in mind. So first of all, you have to know your readers because stakeholders have a diverse need. Customize the report to answer the stakeholders' need. As I mentioned before, some need executive summary, some of course need full report. For executive summary, a concise one is highly preferred, and for full reports, I think make it complete yet concise is also important. And then the second one, don't forget about what we discussed in our episode about audit communication, that effective internal audit communication needs to be accurate, objective, clear, concise, constructive, complete, and timely, and also need to be relevant, I guess. And then, of course, this is important that internal audit report must include objectives, scope, and result of the engagement, and also the action plan. And it is also encouraged to acknowledge the satisfactory performance of our auditees, since this will create such a good relationship with our auditee. And then please make sure that everything we mention in our report should be supported by the needed evidence. And then I think this is the last one, that the distribution of the report must be validated, as I mentioned before, and approved by the Chief Audit Executive to ensure that it is directed to the intended recipients. And lastly, I want to say that I recommend you to read a practice guide of audit reports, supplemental guide of IPPF by the IIA to know more about audit reporting. I think that's all from me. And this is the last questions for you, Bunga. Usually, what are the elements that make up the audit issue that can be highlighted in the audit report? What do you think?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Mbak. Basically, the audit issue consists of a number of audit findings data containing issues that require quick follow-up. There are a certain classification that make it the basis for forming the audit issue component, which are weaknesses in control, the weakness of control mechanism, both in design and, of course, the implementation, and the company's non-compliance issue with laws, regulation, and maybe, a government provision that can be detrimental due to the threat of revocation of a business license, and also risk exposure and mitigation, both potential and unmitigated with existing control, and possible improvement to the process flow to get a better personal system. And last but not least is about the fraud, both individually or maybe, organizationally managed in displaying false information or harming the company or maybe organization. So, Mbak Im and also Infinite Friends, we've talked a lot about audit reporting today, and we do really enjoy and very happy to be able to share with you guys. If you have fun and interesting ideas about updated issue in audit world, please drop your comments on YouTube video comments or on our Instagram at Infinite Audit. And also, if you want, you can discuss further with us via our LinkedIn at Imroatun Sholihat or Gresika Bunga Sylvana. And see you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone.